Alright guys, welcome back to our next Strixhaven review video. We're actually going to be looking at all of our Mystical Archive cards. I had to look again. See, I never remember the name of them. This is a series of 63 cards that are posted, or you can draft, and they're in all of your packs that you can purchase on Arena as well. These cards are going to take the spot of a common card in your packs, in both the 8-card and draftable 15-card packs. So there is 63 of them. You're guaranteed to get one in the common slot. One important thing to note is that you can actually get two because they can show up in the rare slot, or I'm sorry, the foil slot as well, which takes up a second common slot. So if you were purchasing these in paper, they do show up as foils and you can potentially get two in a pack. But other than that, you will be getting one in each. So you can kind of factor that into when, your drafts, and you'll have an idea of roughly what you need to play around. They're not super common, but they will definitely be present in all of your limited gameplay.
Yeah, so the Mystical Archives, weirdly, there are no commons. They're all listed as uncommons, rares, and mythics. And the way they've broken down how they're going to appear, leaving foils aside, is about 2/3 of the time you're going to get an uncommon, a little more than a quarter of the time you'll get a rare, and then the remaining 6 to 7% of the time you'll get a mythic. So how that compares to the normal cards in the set is it's almost the same. Your chance to get any one specific uncommon in a pack is about 3.7%, which is the same as the chance of getting any specific uncommon, regular uncommon in a pack. For the rares, they're right around 1%. Mythics, it's right around 0.5%. So these cards will show up about the same amount, about the same frequency as their comparative rarities in the regular set.
It is slightly worse, but not by too much. Honestly, the rare one seems like it's got the largest difference, right? Because it's regular is what, 0.88 versus 1.26.
Yep.
So you've got the largest difference, whereas it's like 0.03 for the uncommon difference, and the other one is only 0.15 difference. So the rare ones are actually going to be rarer than regular rares. But again, it's pretty minimal and it takes the place of a common. So you're never actually losing out on value. Actually, the first one takes the place of the land slot, doesn't it?
Yes.
And the foil one takes the place of the common slot. So you're actually never really losing out on value, even if you're not getting the extra, rares or mythics. You're just not getting a land and getting a free uncommon, which will add up in vault value. One of the things I did want to mention, guys, these are not altars. So when we get to the cards like, Divine Gambit or Opt, these are cards you've collected in the past that have a different rarity, but this is not an altar. You can't get one and then replace your entire collection in your deck, right? You actually do need to draft or craft all 4 of these if you'd like to use the art, because they have a different rarity and they are not considered a altar, even though they look like one. Welcome, guys. Boss MTG, thank you so much for the raid. I really appreciate it. We are just starting our set review, guys. We're starting with these Mystical Archive cards. So welcome to the channel. I hope you guys enjoy and feel free to chime in. All right, so is that like that seems like the basics for how they're available. You can get them in your drafts, your sealed, and your booster packs, paper and on Arena. You'll get one in every, of the 8 cards. It'll take the common slot for you.
Yeah. The one other thing worth noting, and I know we're a limited focused channel, but is that what the legality of these cards are and constructed.
Yes.
So if these cards, and we'll see some of them are printed in sets that already exist in standard, like there's some from Kaldheim, for example, then they will stay legal in standard because they're already legal in standard. The rest, all of these cards are legal in historic, with an exception of 7 cards. Swords to Plowshares, Counterspell, Dark Ritual, Demonic Tutor, Lightning Bolt, Channel, and Natural Order have all been pre-banned in historic for power level reasons. But everything else that you'll see in this video will be legal in historic.
Which is really weird with such an arena focus these days from Wizards. Like, it's weird that they would print cards that they're just like, okay, you can't use this on our platform literally at all. unless you're maybe playing with friends or something. But I think that's mostly for the paper focus, that they want to reprint a lot of these things that are staples in a lot of other formats and get these cool, interesting arts out there. But again, you know, these cards are mostly legal in whatever format they currently are in standard, and then all of them except for those 7 will be legal in historic. So that's important to mention.
And same goes for formats like modern and pioneer. If they were currently legal in that, they are still legal. If they were not currently legal, this does not make them legal.
Correct. Jinx is saying that we didn't mention the triple rare in a pack, which we kind of did because we said that they take the place of the land slot and they could be rare or mythic, and then they can also trigger a foil slot, which takes the place of a common, and you could get a rare or mythic, right? So like we broke that down. I kind of assume that everybody knows how packs work when you crack them in paper, that you can get, you know, foil rares and such. So it's definitely possible in paper to get triple rare, but you can get double rare in arena.
Yeah, I think what he's referencing, and I'm not certain, I haven't seen this anywhere, is that he's saying that you can get there's a guaranteed lesson slot in arena, which can be rare.
Oh.
But I have not seen that myself, but I also have not particularly looked.
I haven't heard anything about that, but regardless, we're not really talking about the lessons at the moment anyway. We're just talking about the mystical archives, and I don't believe there are lessons in the mystical archives.
Nope.
Great. So moving along, guys, let's go ahead. We're going to start, like I said, rating these cards 1 to 5 based on how we feel they will perform in limited. Now, keep in mind these cards are going to be seen a lot less, because if it's an uncommon, you only have like the 1 or 2 chances to get it, you know, 1 on arena, 2 in paper, versus a lot of common slots or uncommon slots in the actual draft pack. So they are going to be seen less often in your drafts, but we should still talk about them just the same. So our first card for white, guys, Approach of the Second Sun. This is a card we've seen in the past. All of these are reprints, by the way. If you haven't cast this spell, you shuffle it back in 7 cards deep into your deck, and when you cast it a second time, you win the game. So it's a really weird alternate win condition that I've seen people play in Constructed. What do you think about this card, Yanks?
Yeah, it was a standard staple. Blue-white Approach was a very good deck in Ket Standard. For limited, the first time you're casting this, it's basically 7 mana, do nothing. Mm-hmm. So, you know, gain 7 life. And you don't generally have the level of deck manipulation that you do in Constructed to get back to that second attempt really quickly, or have multiple copies where you can just find a different version of it. You know, I'd maybe even have 2 in your hand and just cast them back to back. So I don't think this is particular.
I mean, it's kind of weird, right? So if I'm in white, I think I'm still playing this over like a 23rd playable combat trick or something.
Sure.
So it's not something I'm excited to be running, but like, I don't know, if I feel like if I get past this and I'm in the color, it's probably making the cut.
Yeah, it's an interesting win condition because it's something that your opponent probably can't interact with.
Right? Yeah, like unless they have some sort of mill or way to like change the top of your deck.
Yeah, you basically need a counterspell.
It also kind of prevents you from milling yourself, right? Because like, if let's say even if it's the last card in your deck, you draw it, you cast it, and then you just win the game next turn. So again, I'm not saying this is good, but I'm saying like I can think of a lot of 20 to 23rd playable cards that I probably, you know, don't love having, and I'm pretty happy to play this instead.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that said, I don't love it. You're probably not winning with this card, but it's probably going to make the cut in my deck. So I would think a 2.
Yeah, I'm with you to 2. If this wasn't a mythic that's going to be so hard to find, it would be a fun achievement to try to win with this.
Oh, that's definitely going in our achievement video for sure. All right, our next white card, guys, Day of Judgment. A pretty famous board clear card. Destroy all creatures, plain and simple, for 4 CMC.
Yeah, this card's great. Your traditional 4-mana Wrath. They generally don't print 4-mana conditional Wraths anymore because they're too good.
They are very good.
You know, I'm playing this in every deck, obviously better in a control deck than an aggressive deck, but still having a reset button even in aggro is worth having sometimes.
Certainly, yeah. It's nice to play around, you know, even if it's great when you're super far behind, or it's great like when you're at, you know, dead even. You can just like sandbag a couple creatures, keep them back, and then just wipe the board and start with an advantage.
Yeah, even in aggressive decks, sometimes those slower decks have to expend all their resources just to stop your first rush, and they think they've turned the corner, and now you can wipe their board, and you get back into a top deck war, which gives you a shot.
Yeah, you get some little pew pew dudes, and it's great.
Yeah.
What do you rate this type of card in limited?
I love board rats in limited. At 4 mana, I'm putting this at a 4.
Okay, I'm also putting it at a 4. I know some people think like board clears like this are 5s. They're just insane. They win you games. But like a lot of times they're just dead cards too. I mean, this is making the cut in every single white deck, and I'm happy to have it. But again, it doesn't always necessarily just win you the game. So I like it at a 4.
Agreed.
Defiant Strike. This is a card that we see actually in a fair amount of you know, cheaper, more aggressive, like Boros themed decks. It cycles, which is really cool. I think this was originally printed in like a prowess set, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
or
I believe this
heroic?
was Concertarch here.
Was that heroic or prowess?
Prowess.
Prowess, got it. It's a pretty small combat trick, +1/+0. You're probably not lethaling somebody with this. You know, sometimes it happens, sure, but the more important thing is that it like possibly trades you up and replaces itself, so it's free in your deck, which is really nice. And it will also trigger the Magecraft, which is a really nice thing when you're casting a spell to trigger Magecraft, in addition to drawing another card, which will potentially snowball you into more Magecrafts. I like this a fair amount as a combat trick.
Yeah, it's a low upside, low downside card for the most part.
Yep.
Not a huge effect on the board, but 1 mana just to cycle, you know, and have a small effect. I'm fine with that. And if you can get some Magecraft triggers, sure, this is going to be better than a lot of 23rd.
Yep, cards. I agree. I think it's a little bit higher just because of the Magecraft. Oops, I gotta stop doing the back button when I'm looking at my Google Doc. So I like it at like a 2/5. Normally I would say it was a 2, but there seems to be enough Magecraft in here to where I think I'm going to be happier with this.
Yeah, I think the 2 to 2/5, depending on how much Magecraft you have.
Yep, great. We are in agreement. Divine Gambit. This is a set that was literally just printed in the uncommon slot as well. I wasn't happy with it in this previous set. I'm not particularly happy with it now.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, everybody probably knows this card since we just saw it, but white, exile an artifact, creature, and enchantment and opponent controls, and they can put a permanent onto the battlefield from their hand. I love that the art of this card is depicting, like, the worst-case scenario. You kill their knight, and they put down a dragon.
I actually didn't notice that, but that is literally what is happening. Yeah, you split the knight in half, and then a dragon comes out.
Yeah, it's exactly what you don't want to happen when you cast this card.
So, you know, I've been pretty unhappy with it. I think it's a good late game removal. If you can sit and hold on to it for a little while, you want to draw them late when they, you know, have expended most of their resources. A lot of YouTube comments keep saying, no, the way you use Divine Gambit is you cast it on a creature and then you have a good removal spell to take care of whatever they play. And I'm like, so you have to have good removal at the ready at all times. Like at that point, you don't need Divine Gambit, right?
I wish you could see the confused look on my face from that comment.
And I get that comment a ton. The answer is to just have better cards to make up for the fact that this one sucks.
Yeah, I mean, Divine Gambit is fine. You can play the card. I'm perfectly happy to play one in a white deck as long as I'm not hyper aggressive. To just, you know, clear something out when they're hellbent late game and have nothing, or have one card and there's a good chance to land. But yeah, it's not premium removal by any means.
Yeah, I'll run it in like 1 out of 4 decks if I need the removal, and then I try to maneuver it in such a way to where I'm casting it late in the game, to where they're far more likely to just whiff on it, and then it's a great removal spell. Yeah. So I have this at a 2. Thoughts?
I have it a little higher. I have it at 2/5. I think I'll probably play it in any white deck that's not the most aggressive, but I'm still not thrilled.
All right.
All right, Ephemerate. I don't remember off the top of my head when this was first printed, but white for an instant to blink a creature. Exile target creature you control and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. And it has Rebound, which basically means you exile it when you cast it, when it resolves. And then at the beginning of your next upkeep, you can play it for free.
I find that a lot of the times when I have played in limited sets before with Rebound is that the Rebound ability itself usually fizzles. A lot of times, like, it's a pump spell or something, and you don't really, like, get the use out of it. But this one's a bit different if you can try to set it up in such a way. I like the idea of holding on to this, like, if your opponent, like, Bind in Gold's type card, you're a creature, you could flicker this and then do nothing with the second rebound trigger, or you could just potentially sit if you have the flexibility to do so, and then remove an additional removal, and then the next turn rebound and flicker the other creature. The other thing is, like, if you have ETB effects, I wouldn't just burn this on getting the ETB trigger. I would probably try to fade a removal spell and then get your ETB trigger.
You're setting everything I wanted to say on this card. If you're trying to get it out from under removal, maybe you're only getting one, but you're getting it for 1 mana. If you're doing it to re-trigger ETB effects, you're either you can re-trigger the same one twice.
Yep.
At minimum, at worst. So, instant speed, you can surprise block something by blinking it out from underneath Binding Gold, for example.
Yep. I do like that a lot. So again, like, if it's a Bind in Gold situation, maybe hold on to it if you feel like you have the ability to wait, so that way you get maximum value out of a card like this.
Yep.
That said, what are you thinking for score?
I think it needs this. They have to look at the set to see what sort of aura-based removal there is. Granted, it can save a creature from any type of spell just by blinking. So I think I have this at like a 3 just because of its upside.
I have it at 3 as well. I feel like you'll always find value for it, whether that value is good or not. Like, I feel like at its medium, it's just going to be fine, but it's got... Go ahead.
It's hard for this to be, to not be at least a 1-for-1, and you're getting it for 1 mana at instance.
Yes. So at its worst, it's fine, and then it's got a huge swing upside, which normally you see cards with huge upside typically have like a very low initial rating. Like, sometimes you just, get no value out of them. But I do like this one a fair amount. Great, we are in agreement at a 3.
Yep.
Gift of Estates, guys. Sorcery, 2 mana. If an opponent controls more lands than you, search for up to 3 planes and then put them into your hand and shuffle your library. So it's a ramp thing, which doesn't really fit into any of our schools, right? The ramping is more Quandrix, but...
It's so weird. I mean, I believe this was originally a commander card. It's reminiscent of Land Tax, the old enchantment that lets you go get 3 planes if somebody had more lands than you, but that was 1 mana and an enchantment that sat on the battlefield.
I have seen that.
Doing it over and over again. Only time I really want something like this is if I have ways to use just extra quantity of cards, like discard draw effects, where I can now have 3 planes I can discard to draw 2 real cards or something.
Yeah, this feels like it's in the set more for constructed than anything else. This isn't going to be one of the original ban cards in Historic, so I think this card is kind of in here for Historic.
I think, Historic, and just as a nice new altar for Commander.
Great. So yeah, again, I'm not usually really running this. I don't see a ton of discard abilities in the set in general. It's mostly sacrifice abilities, and I don't think they're sacrificing lands. It's mostly creatures, so it really doesn't synergize with much.
No, it does work well with Learn if you don't have lessons worth getting, because you can discard these extra planes, but that's so minor.
That is pretty minor, but I did not think about that. Yeah, so if you have a ton of Learn with no lesson, you just grab 3 extra planes and you just pitch them for redraws.
Yeah, it would take a very specific deck.
Yeah.
But it does exist, probably.
Yeah, but that makes it lower on our scale, just because that's not like a real thing that you can expect to see in an average deck. So I put this at a 1.
Agreed.
Great.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if I ever...
My preview card. God's Willing, guys. We've seen this in other sets. 1 mana, give protection from a specific color of your choice, and scry 1.
Yeah, good combat trick. Can push through the last few points of damage through blockers of a certain color if you need to. Works well with Magecraft. It's a good card.
It fades removal. One thing to note that it is protection from a color as opposed to hexproof, which we usually see like in green. The last set had 1 mana gain hexproof. So this can actually remove like Bind in Gold effects after the fact, because if you give it protection from white, it will then fall off. So it is kind of flexible in that it can do a wide range of things. It can push through lethal damage, it can prevent instant speed removal, it can retroactively remove lockdown spells, it can do all sorts of things. It can prevent things from tapping your creatures down, abilities and such, which, you know, it just gives it a ton of flexibility.
Yeah, lots of different things this card can do for 1 mana. You also get to scry just because why not? It's one of the better combat tricks you'll see.
Yep.
With other advantages too.
I'm pretty happy to run this. I like it at a 3. Thoughts?
Yep, agreed.
Great. Mana Tithe. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1.
Top of the list for rage-inducing cards.
That's true. People won't play around your white counterspell.
Nope. I love mana tithing people in Cube. That being said, it's not particularly good.
I don't find 1 mana spells or 1 mana counterspell. How do I say this? Unless they pay 1 counter spells to be useful in limited. It's more of a constructed thing, because if you can stop them from tempoing out their first like couple of plays, it's fine. And you typically have other uses for it. I feel like it's just more constructed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see a world where you bring this in against like a Prismari deck with a lot of 5, 6, and 7 mana spells.
Yes.
Like out of your sideboard, that's the 3, but yeah, again, it's not the end of the world if you play this as your 23rd card. It's fine. But it'll trigger your Magecraft abilities, but I'm not excited about it.
I just really hate cards that are dead after a couple of turns, and this one feels pretty dead most of the time in limited.
Yep, but Mana Tithing and Elder Dragon Legend should be on the achievement list.
Oh yeah. Alright, I like that. Revitalize, guys. This is a card we see in basically every core set, including like the last set, right? We have a Revitalize in Helheim?
Right? I believe so.
Yeah.
Or at least certainly...
Oh yeah, no, there definitely is one in Keltheim, yeah, because it goes with the angels. So you 2 mana, gain 3, draw a card, which does a couple of different things. There is the life gain synergy in the Witherbloom, so you could potentially be draining for that life as well. It draws you another card, so kind of cantrips, and allows you to trigger your Magecrafts more often, which is kind of nice. So on its own, it's not a very powerful card. You're not going to want to run it in most decks, but I could see some situations where you have a highly synergistic deck and you're going to want to run this.
Yeah, the card's a little worse than usual because white is not
part of Witherbloom.
Exactly. Yep. In the life. It's not the life gain deck this time. It's still cantrips. Weird. Yeah, it triggers Magecraft, like you said. Playable, but probably near the end of your deck.
That is true. It's weird. I've never seen the life gain deck not be in white. Huh. So that does make it slightly worse. So that said, I think it's a 2. It cantrips. You know, I could see bringing it to a 2/5 if you have those Magecraft cards, but on its own, I'm pretty not happy to run it. Maybe it's even a 1/5 on normal.
Yeah, I've got it around a 1/5, but you know, not the end of the world if you stick.
I put it a little higher just because of the Magecraft, but you know, I don't think that's really good enough. So yeah, I like the 1/5. Swords to Plowshares, guys. Pretty famous card we see a bunch in Constructed.
Yeah, it's the here we got the best removal spell ever printed. 1 mana, exile any creature. They gain some life.
Which
usually you're okay with.
Is if they're gonna lose, what's losing a turn later? Yeah, I don't see any downsides to this in limited.
No, this is not that this is a word, but the premiumest of premium removal.
Agreed, yeah. And life gain in limited is even less relevant, because like if you're ahead, a couple of life is usually not going to turn the corner for them unless they draw some sort of outrageous bomb. But in general, limit is sort of like a downward slide, right? Like once you kind of get the ball rolling in your direction, then you can kind of just steamroll it.
Yeah, I mean, just for how good this card is, like how good Path to Exile is in Modern for 1 mana, and that drawback on that card is so much worse ramping your opponent, and it's still really good.
Yes, agreed. So
yeah.
Normally we put premium removal at a 4. Are we thinking about upping this? It doesn't win you the game, which is our 5s.
Yeah, I think if anything, if any removal spell was going to be higher, it would be this one. But I think that's still reserved for the cards that win the game. Um, I think this can stay at a 4.
Great. Teferi's Protection. This is the interesting one that's got one of those bonus mechanics we were talking about in our last video, guys. This one actually phases everything out. Your life total cannot change, you gain protection from everything, and permanents you control are phased out. So phased out is not like the flicker cards that we see in other cards or other mechanics, where, you know, what was the rebound one that we were just talking about?
Ephemerate.
Yeah, so Ephemerate is going to re-trigger your ETB effects. It's going to do a whole bunch of like extra things. Whereas this is not going to trigger your ETB effects because your creature phases out and then it doesn't enter the battlefield again. It just phases back in.
Yeah, there are 2 big differences between phasing and flickering. One of which is the ETB effects. The other is if one of your permanents in this case has an aura attached to it, that will phase out with it and then come back still attached to it.
Yeah, because the creature is not actually leaving. Like
there's no changing of zones happening. Same goes for equipped artifacts.
So it is a bit different. I'm not sure how relevant this card is going to be in limited. Like, hypothetically, if your opponent has lethal next turn, you cast this card, it gives you 1 more draw spell to like kind of get out of it. It's instant speed, which is kind of nice. So if they like use combat tricks to get you into lethal situation, and then you can basically phase those out by making yourself invulnerable. But I think there's going to be few situations where they're going to win, you cast this, and now you can win and stop them from winning somehow.
Yeah, I think more likely what you're going to get out of this is if they use some combat tricks or something to win a combat, you can phase all your stuff out in response.
Yeah, so I like it like an anti, like you said, combat or even removal. It's 3 mana, instant speed, so it's not super expensive, and you could probably get, you know, this is going to be a 1-for-1 in some way, whether it's just removal or combat trick.
Yeah.
But I doubt it's going to be any sort of like weird, like the way it's phrased and it's mythic, I feel like it should be some game-altering thing, but it's probably not.
No, but yeah, I think it's, again, probably a card worth playing, but not something excited.
Great. What do you put it at?
Got it probably around a 3 just because of upside.
Okay.
But I could easily see it being like a 2 or 2.5 too, because it's not guaranteed.
Great. I had it at a 2. We'll meet in the middle. 2.5 sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Moving on to the blue cards, we have a blue sun zenith. 3 blue and X, and draw X, and target player draws X cards. Shuffle blue sun zenith back into your library. So it's a really big draw spell.
Yeah, I mean, this will work well in a Quandrix deck that's ramping.
Certainly.
Triple blue is a bit of a pain, but
also in the Prismari deck where you're, you know, getting a bunch of things for casting spells, getting a spell that then draws you into a whole bunch more spells seems pretty good.
Yep, or if you can copy this for 2 more mana in some cases. Note that unlike a lot of draw spells, you can target your opponent with it, so you can deck them with it.
That would be interesting late game. Blue sun your opponent for like, you know, 7 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have many cards left in your deck, you can just keep doing it because it shuffles back in.
Can't mill yourself out, just play for 3 every turn. That's true, but you have to win with the cards, you know, available to you. So all right, let's go ahead and pretty straightforward card. What are we thinking score wise?
I think it's a 3/5. Very powerful draw spell, but probably not going to win you the game.
I agree with that. I think I have it at a very similar number as well.
All right, Brainstorm, one of my favorite cards of all time. Draw 3, put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. A lot of people will know this card as the best card in Legacy, restricted in Vintage. It's really not that great in Limited, as people who play Vintage Cube probably would know that it's playable, but a lot of times you're going to put 2 cards back on top of your deck that you don't really want, and you have to draw them the next.
Yes.
Why this card is so great in Legacy? For example, you've got 12 to 14 fetch lands in your deck. that just shuffle those cards away. Uh, Unless you got a bunch of shuffle effects, Brainstorm's playable, but it's not something to get complete very.
Yeah, it smooths out your draws. It's going to be really nice in your opening hand in limited because it lets you like organize, I want to draw my land, hit my land drop, and then let me do, such and such. And then you can like arrange your creatures according to like, mana cost. So it is very nice early, but the later the game goes, it does become less valuable. It does give you your highest value card right now in your next 3 cards, which may or may not be very good. But then after that, like you said, you're still drawing those crappy things. I think it's going to be great for hand smoothing in the beginning, though.
Yeah, you play a dangerous game using this to find your second or third land, for example, because if you miss, you're now Brainstorm locked. And that's 2 more turns where you're not getting it. um, but sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah. I feel like if you are trying to find your third land or whatever and you miss, then that's just kind of like you're not winning that game regardless. This is going to give you a much better chance to find it.
Yeah, a lot of times that's true. But yeah, I love this card, but in this set's context and limited, probably like between a 2 and a 2/5. It's good. Triggers your Magecraft stuff, but not amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to put it at a 2/5 only because I do think that initial hand smoothing for limited just lets you curve out, hit your land drops exactly how you want to hit them. And, like I said, putting back those expensive cards and then and figuring out exactly how your deck can curve out the best out of the top 10 cards of your library out of 40 is pretty big.
Yeah. What I'm most interested in for Brainstorm is what this does to Historic, because it is legal.
That's true. All right. Cumulative research. Sorcery speed. Target player draws 3 cards, then that player discards 2 cards unless they discard a land, which is usually the thing you want to discard anyway. We've seen this before with a more recent set, one of the Theros sets, where you had to discard an enchantment or discard 2. And that felt kind of bad because a lot of times you wanted your enchantments. But discarding a land is usually the minimal punishment, so that's great.
Yeah, there's a reason Compulsive Research is a sorcery, while the card you're referring to in Thirst for Knowledge, which is the same but discard an artifact, or instant speed, because this is more powerful. You generally want to discard that land. You're more likely to get the, plus a card effect, as opposed to just filtering, play this, discard 2, and draw 3, where it's a 3 for 3.
Yeah. What are you thinking score-wise?
I think this is a solid 3. I mean, probably a little bit better than Divination. But not hugely.
Yeah, I usually put Divination at a 3. I feel like this is better, but I don't know if it's 3/5.
Yeah, it's in that 3. It's in that 3 to 3/5 range.
All right, our next spell is Counterspell. Pretty art.
Yeah, the hand says no.
So 2 mana, Counterspell. I have this in one of my childhood decks. But, very straightforward card. I think counterspells are fine in limited. This has no restrictions, which makes it much better. Double blue pip is a little bit tough to get around, but I still think we're playing this.
Yeah, it's the first counterspell. It's why they're called counterspells. 2 mana unconditional answer anything.
What are we thinking score-wise?
I get this around a 3. Usually like 3 mana counters are lower, but just being 2 mana, even if it's blue, it makes it hard to cast on turn 2, but you can double spell easier with it later, but up later.
Yeah, I tend to rate counterspells lower than most people. I still think this is about a 3. I think I'm pretty happy to run that in literally any blue deck.
Yep. Next up, we have Memory Lapse. 1 of the blue, counter target spell. If it's countered this way, put it on top of its owner's library instead of into the graveyard. So we've seen effects similar to this, like Remand, which puts it back in their hand. Memory Lapse is back from Alliances when it was originally printed. It feels bad when you read it because you're only temporarily dealing with the card, and they're just going to get it back the next turn. But you've also stolen their next draw step.
Yes.
So it is still a 1-for-1, even though they're getting that card back. It's a great card if you're already ahead, because it forces them to do the same thing for a second turn in a row, trying to get back into it.
Now, I don't know if we're going to have anything like this in limited, but I know oftentimes there's ways to like control the top of your opponent's library too. Like in limited, we find cards that say, look at the top card of your opponent's library and decide whether you keep it on top or put it in the graveyard. So synergies like that could help, but it's pretty minimal. I think that's not something you'll find very often. So I agree this is a tempo play. You want to cast this not necessarily on a big bomb that you have to deal with, but you're pretty happy to use this as a tempo play like you would a bounce spell or something. And also, like you said, it's a 1-for-1 versus like a bounce spell that actually just is only tempo. This is better than that.
Yeah, I think one of the best case scenarios for this card is you use it on like a combat trick or something that needs to resolve right then, or they're not getting the value out of it.
Yes, and then you can play around it in the future. I agree with that.
Exactly, because you know it's there.
But I can honestly see just casting this on like a vanilla creature in limited too, where like if you're on the front foot, you basically bounce their 3 or 4 drop and putting it back on top of their library. Again, it's not something that doesn't necessarily needs countering, but it just puts you in that driver's seat as far as limited and lets you just kind of run over the game with that tempo.
Yeah, and casting it out as they're curving out a lot of times really delays it for sometimes 3 or 4 turns because they have other things they're trying to do.
Yep.
Shadow. So yeah, it's not as good as Counterspell, which we just saw, but a very good card.
Yeah.
Probably having it like 5, like just below Counterspell.
Yep, I think so. 2/5. It's going to get played. It's not to the point where I'm happy about it, but it's a good card. Great. Mind's Desire. A very expensive 6 mana spell, sorcery speed. Shuffle your library and then exile the top card of your library. Until the end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost. And we have Storm. 6 mana Storm spell is probably not going to get a whole lot of storming happening, but in limited, that is.
Yeah, this is a great card in Vintage Cube or in Vintage where you've got a bunch of rituals and things like Moxen and Black Lotus to power out your mana, but not in a standard limited set.
Yeah, and then the fact that you have to shuffle first means that you have, like, it's not something that you can, like, manipulate the top of your library and then cast it, so that way you get the guarantee. And also, you're very rarely playing something in your deck that costs more than 6 anyway, so I think I am not happy to play this.
No, it's a fun card, but it's a 1.
Absolutely. Definitely more constructed playable, but for the storm purpose, but other than that, I don't think it's worth it. Negate. Another counterspell.
Yeah, 1 of the blue, counter target non-creature spell. We've seen it a million times. Cool art, but nothing exciting about this card.
Great art. Yeah, I'm never mainboarding negates in my deck. I've played this a lot in standard. I'm pretty happy to pick them up for my sideboard if I find out that my opponent has more than one very good spell that I would like to stop, either removal or combat trick heavy decks, but definitely something I'm only picking up for the sideboard.
Yep, I think it's a little more main deckable and sealed because everybody's playing good removal. All their removal spells they open, but yeah, this is mostly a sideboard card.
Opt, a card we already have 30,000 copies of in all of our accounts.
Yep, blue mana, scry 1, draw card. Nothing new to say here.
No, nothing new to say here except for Magecraft, right? I think cards like this are a little bit better in formats where you've got, the prowess, or in this situation, Magecraft. It allows you to trigger that, scry away a card, and help yourself to draw more things that will trigger your Magecraft. So I like it. It's a 2/5. It replaces itself and has a bunch of upside for synergy.
Yeah, and maybe at some point they'll create a format where we can just play 60 ops, 15 different parts.
Yeah, for sure. Strategic Planning. This is a reprint we just saw recently. Again, very pretty art. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them to your hand, and the rest into the graveyard. The graveyard fuel decks are white, red, and black, green, right? So not great there. So basically just looking at the top 3 and getting the best one.
Yeah, it's sorcerer speed. Classic 23rd card. nothing's wrong with it replacing itself with some filtering, but doesn't really do much. It just kind of spin your wheels.
Yeah, lets you dig if you need that land, lets you, pitch away a land or two off the top and get a playable card. So it's fine if you need the playables. It will replace itself and do a good job, but I'd rather just have good cards.
This is the kind of card that you will start to play more if you have a ton of Magecraft. Like, this is where this card sneaks in as your 23rd card.
Yeah, either that or you have multiple bombs.
Yep.
Like, I'm pretty happy to, pitch cards and dig deeper and try to find, even if you don't hit that bomb in the top 3, pitching...
You're getting close.
Yeah, you're getting closer and closer, so that's really nice. And I wouldn't want to do it if I just had one, because what if it's in the bottom of your deck? You're not really doing much. But if you have more than one, like, you're really increasing your chances to basically draw that card. So Ephemerate Gambit. I think this is the only one that has Phyrexian cost. So this is the only card you'll see in Limited with Phyrexian. So you can pay 2 life instead of a blue mana, which actually means you can splash this card in any deck you like without having to play the blue, which is nice.
Yeah, this it can be 3 mana and 2 life, draw 2 cards, which is a little worse than divination. Proliferate, word I always have trouble saying, is not nothing either. You've got Quandrix has a lot of token or counters, and so does Silver Quill. So that could be some synergies there. But mostly it's the fact that you can play it in any deck.
Yeah.
Giving card draw to an aggressive black-white deck, for example, or
I mean, honestly, even if you are in blue, you might want to just pay the 2 life just for tempo purposes, to cast more things, or just cast it on 3 to hit your land drops if you need it. So I think this card is good. I'm playing it in almost every deck, not even just every blue deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are we thinking score-wise?
Got it around a 3 with upside if you have some counters.
Going back, DT Bro, thanks for the raid. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's got the fact that you can cast it in any deck. I want to give it a higher score.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that is very flexible.
Even if you don't have the proliferate synergy, and I feel like every deck will have a thing or two it could trigger on, just because it's kind of random. But on average, you're probably not hitting the proliferate, but casting it in any card or potentially cheaper it feels so good to me.
Yeah, there's a reason a lot of Phyrexian mana cards have been banned.
All right, Time Warp, guys. 5 mana, sorcery speed. Target player takes an extra turn after this one. How we feeling?
The card's just great. If you're even or ahead on board, it just lets you, advance past them. If you're behind, it gives you another chance to catch up. It is expensive, so it's not as great when you're behind, because a lot of times you're just kind of going to pay 5 and say go, and just draw another card. But this just has so much potential, especially, again, I know talking limited, but if you have planeswalkers.
Yes, definitely better for planeswalkers, but I'm gonna kind of ignore that, because if you have this and a planeswalker, I already don't care what you have to say. That's the limited player in me, but I think it's gonna be good late game if you have a lot of draw spells, especially because you'll want to steamroll that extra turn in some way by casting a small creature and then drawing another turn. So you need to get some sort of progression in that first turn when you're casting this, if you can, if you're behind, that is, because otherwise it's just kind of just a redraw, essentially, right?
Yeah.
If you're not doing anything else. Where this card really shines and has a huge upside is if you're ahead, because you're just send my flyers or whatever. You can't block, or you make difficult blocks, and then I just do it again, and I don't allow you to draw or progress the board. So this card is a bit of a win more card, I feel like, but it also, if you have cheap things, it does allow you to help dig and get yourself out of a situation or break through from a board stall.
Yeah, I can see this being really good in Quandrix when they're ramping, because if you can play this on turn 6, but you have 8 mana out, you
Yes.
can maybe play another spell, and then you get to untap with 8 or 9 the next turn.
Yep, even if that spell is something small, like you attack and use a pump spell to get their creature and then cast this, like you're still feeling great. What do you think for score?
I've got this at a 4.
I also have it at 4. Great. Whirlwind Denial. This is a card that was printed not that long ago. I don't remember what set, but I feel like I got less value for it than what I was hearing other people getting. For each spell and ability your opponent controls, counter it unless its controller pays 4. So I was hearing from a lot of other streamers and viewers that they were countering multiple things, whether that be a spell and an ability or multiple spells. I was just getting a 3-mana counterspell, which is fine, but I didn't really feel a ton of the upside. Now that's also partly because I don't tend to play a lot of decks that use things like this, but I definitely played a fair share, but
yeah,
what did you think?
I agree. Where this card shines is when you have cards with cast triggers, so you can actually counter both the card and the cast trigger. So something like a Hydroid Crisis or an Eldrazi.
Okay.
Which we haven't seen in this set. Again, just at its face, 3 mana if you're just countering spell, or the fact that you can counter like a Planeswalker Ultimate with it. Again, limited. Hey, this has a lot of impact on some really high-end cards that you're not going to see too much in limited, so I think mostly we're just looking at 3 mana for pay 4 counterspell.
Yeah, I do like that it has the flexibility to counter an ability, but again, I don't think that you're going to be getting that double value of either double spell or double ability or whatever. But I guess it it's definitely possible, and I've heard people from the last time this was printed that they were getting it quite often. I just didn't see those results.
It does completely wreck the storm cards in Mystical Archive.
That's true.
I
only saw like one of the storm cards that really seemed very playable, so
yeah. Card's playable, probably like a 2.
Great. I also agree that it's about a 2. I think that the reports I was hearing put it closer to a 3, but I didn't see it, so. Agonizing Remorse. 2 mana. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, or a card from their graveyard. Exile it, you lose a life. So this, potentially removes something out of the graveyard if they're having some synergies. It feels more constructed to me, but the fact that it is a non-land card means that you're going to hit, right? A lot of times they are choose a creature card or choose a non-creature card, which makes it so you whiff. I never want to use those. This one is fine, but I also hate these kinds of abilities because when you draw them in the 2/3, the last 2 portions of the game, they're almost useless.
Yeah, discard's always like right on 1 or 2 mana, especially 2 mana discard is always right on the edge of playability. This card's one of the better ones, though. I think I would play it, but
yeah,
it's like a 2 to 2/5.
Yeah, I like it at a 2/5 as well.
Yeah. I think mostly because you can exile, which is nice.
I do think that this has, like you were saying, on the edge of playability, in that I think it's decent and you could play this, but I actually think it's quite strong for the sideboard as well.
Agreed.
There's going to be a lot of things you'll decide you want to hit after the fact, so definitely look to pick this up. It's one of the higher end sideboard things, I think.
Absolutely agree.
Great. Crux of Fate. Very controversial card we've seen lately.
Yeah, this card's is surrounded by controversy, and not for anything the card itself does.
Yeah.
3 black sorcery, destroy all dragons or destroy all non-dragons. It's basically a 5 mana board wipe.
Yep. It feels good if your deck has dragons in it.
Yeah, there is a mythic cycle of dragons in this deck, in this set. So, if you somehow get that plus one of the, plus another mythic, hey, you got a combo.
Great.
But it's really just a 5 mana board wipe, which is very playable.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with that. I don't, it's obviously not as good as Day of Judgment, but maybe it's as good as Day of Judgment, or it's better if you have dragons, I suppose. But yeah, I think these are just 4s, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Day Judgment is on the whole better, but not a full grade thing.
Dark Ritual. I love this art compared to a lot of the other Dark Writs.
Yeah, starts.
So it's just 1 mana, add 3 mana, so it's just a 2 mana ramp spell. I guess a temporary ramp, not a permanent. I don't think like things like this are very good in limited.
No, I think these are typically very bad cards. You're just usually the cards you're casting in limited are not high impact enough to want yourself to play.
Yes, I agree with that. Your limited deck would have to be very, very high impact, where you would have to be able to close the game out with a very small amount of cards. If you think you can do that, then this is fine. But for the most part, I'm pretty happy to not run these cards. Great.
Yeah.
I have it at a 1.
Yep, agreed.
Demonic Tutor, 2 mana, search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, and then shuffle your library.
So there's 2 sides to this card. The first is this card is amazing. It's a second copy of the best card in your deck, or whatever card you need at the time, right? That's great. But on the other side, it also means that whatever that card is now cost you 2 more mana. And
yes,
how many cards in your deck are you actually happy with at 2 more mana?
The other thing is that, like, what happens if you draw your bomb first and then this comes out later and you're searching for like something very mediocre? Typically, tutor effects are not very good in limited.
I agree. I think this might be the one exception because of how cheap it is, and it goes straight into your hand, not to the top of your library, and it's unconditional. But it's not, don't be fooled by the fact that this is banned in Legacy and restricted in Vintage. It is not a broken card by any limited.
I will say that the value of this card goes up the higher the overall value of your deck is. So if you have an extremely powerful deck, this card becomes great. If you have a mediocre deck, this card is mediocre.
If you have 2 bombs, or even really like 1 bomb and 2 premium removal spells to go get, like, then I'm thrilled with this card.
Agreed. But you really need multiples of highly, or multiple powerful cards.
Yeah.
Great. So this is like in the average deck, an average card.
Yeah, I think because you don't need that much to make it good, and you've got stuff like Magecraft and things like that, I'm still pretty happy to play this in most non-hyper-aggressive decks. So I'm looking at probably like a 3.
Okay, great. I put it at a 2/4.
Okay.
So that makes sense.
Sure.
Doomblade. See this in a lot of core sets a while ago. 2 mana, destroy target non-black creature. Even if your opponent is playing black, it's still going to hit half their deck or more.
Yeah, this is another premium removal spell. It's part of the old meme on that card. Why is this creature no good? Dies to Doomblade.
I do remember that meme. I haven't heard it in a while, but we also haven't had Doomblade printed in a little while. So yeah, I like this premium 4.
Yeah.
Great. I've drafted a lot of Doomblades in my day, and I've never been unhappy even when my opponent is playing black, so. All right, Duress. This is a card we see a ton of. 1 mana, opponent reveals their hand. They choose a non-creature, non-land from it. This is what I was talking about earlier, where this card is going to miss a lot, and I really don't like mainboarding this at all.
Yeah, I can't imagine ever mainboarding Duress.
No, I agree.
Good sideboard card, though.
It is, but even then, I feel like I would have to see a lot of spells to try to get this.
Yeah. Agreed.
Eliminate. Card we've seen recently. 2 mana, destroy target creature or planeswalker with a value 3, with mana value 3 or less. So this is the new change in word we were talking about, guys. Mana value equals CMC.
Yeah, another very good removal spell. Not as unconditional as Doomblade, but does hit planeswalkers. Cheap ones, which there aren't a lot of.
Yeah, it won't hit any planeswalkers in this set, right?
Yeah, I don't believe so.
No, it'll hit more of the Spark Planeswalkers.
Actually, one side of the flip Planeswalker, it might. But either way, I think this is a little worse than Doomblade, like a 3/5.
Really? You actually still put it that high?
Yeah, just 2 mana instant speed.
Oh, that's true. Normally, when I rate this card, it's usually 3 mana, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or sometimes
no,
you get them at sorcery speed.
Yeah. No, that I agree with that.
It actually does hit a couple Planeswalkers in this set. Kasmina's 3 and Rowan is 3.
Oh, really? They're that cheap?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Sign in Blood. Oh, did I skip Inquisition? I did. Great. Inquisition, 1 black guy's target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it with mana value 3 or less, and they discard. Another thing that they're going to miss on a lot, right?
Yeah, this is a constructed card. They gave us all of the playable constructed discard in here except for Thoughtseize, because they already have Thoughtseize in Historic.
Sure.
So I think this is just in here to add to Historic. Not even really a sideboard card, because there's not enough high impact stuff that you're going to want to that's cheap enough that you're going to want to bring this out of the sideboard for.
Great. It's a 1. Sign in Blood, 2 black, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. I've definitely killed people with this card by making them lose 2, but more often than not, you're just happy to...
Have you killed them by making them deck themselves?
No. Very few of my black decks have that sort of long game plans, but
agreed.
Yeah, you could definitely kill your opponent with this, which is a nice thing.
Yeah.
Comes up more often than you would think, but also, you know, draw spells in black are hard to find and great value, so I'm happy to run this all the time.
Agreed. I think I've got this around a 3.
Agreed.
All right, this next one is a weird card.
Great, you read it.
Tainted Pact. 1 in a black instant. Exile the top card of your library. You can put it into your hand unless it has the same name as another one you've exiled. And repeat this process until you put one into your hand, or you exile 2 cards with the same name, whichever happens first. I believe this was originally printed in Odyssey a while back, but I've never really found a use for this card anywhere. I'm sure there's probably some shenanigans you can do with it in Commander. In fact, actually, yes, you can, because everything's singleton except for basics in Commander.
So for limited, you're basically just exiling cards till you find the card you want.
Yeah, or you hit 2 basic lands.
Great. So yeah, if you hit the second basic land, then you whiffed. So if you hit a land, you want to get your next card.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you risk 7ing out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not super happy with it. It's like a worse tutor, right?
So it's a way worse tutor, yeah.
So
it forces you to make some interesting decisions, but yeah, I'm not playing this card.
Feels very chaosy to me. I'm not playing it either. So great, we'll put it at a 1.
Yep.
Tendrils of Agony, 4 mana. Target player loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life with Storm. Storm will have some, you'll probably get a trigger or something, but I think your best case scenario in most of these Storm cards are like 2. If like you cast something and then your opponent uses a combat trick, but also keep in mind there's sorcery, so it's like very minimal flexibility. I don't think I'm running this card.
No, this is your classic Legacy or Vintage Storm win condition, but it's not useful. It's unlimited.
Yeah. If I'm short on playables and I've got multiples of the uncommon Witherbloom Lords, then sure.
Yeah, maybe if you somehow end up with 3 Dark Rituals in this.
That's true. Village Rites, we see this a lot. It's a fine card you can always play. It's nice to sack off your little pests in the set. It'll also be nice to remove like the lockdown enchantments you could always use it on. If you have any like graveyard recursion, it's always good. It's, something I cut often, but am never unhappy to run.
Yeah, you usually can get some value out of this, especially with every school creating tokens in this set.
2/5?
Yep.
Great. I'm going to try to speed us up a little bit. We're already at an hour, and we're only like halfway done. All right, guys. Chaos Warp. 3 mana, instant speed. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library and then reveal the top card of their library. If it is a permanent card, put it onto the battlefield. So you just kind of Russian roulette your opponent's creature or whatever away, permanent. Right? Is it permanent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a commander card. It's a way for red to deal with enchantments, things they can't deal with otherwise.
Yep. And then you hope that your opponent tops a land.
Yep.
But you could also get something way worse. But if it's their bomb or dragon, then, you know, the chances are it's still going to be something better. But it is a card disadvantage. So I hope my red decks have more removal to where I don't want to run this. But if you're desperate...
Yeah, and I don't think there's really a way to abuse the fact that you can target your own stuff with it.
No.
In limited, at least. I know there is in other formats, but
you can do it on your own stuff. Yeah, but if you get rid of your... I guess you could get rid of your land, and worst case scenario, you hit another land.
Yeah.
But it's probably more likely to hit a creature. But it's just one card. You don't keep revealing until you hit something permanent.
You
so you could whiff with a spell, yeah.
Yeah.
Feels pretty bad.
Yeah. Might play this just to have fun, but it's not actually a card.
Yeah. I would say it's not something I want to target my own stuff with, and I will target my opponent's stuff if I am desperate for bomb removal.
Yeah.
It's a mythic, so pick it up for gems for your sideboard. If your opponent shows big dragons, then you add it. Great. Claim the Firstborn. This is a card we've seen recently. I don't know if there's sack outlets in the format or not, but I'm typically not happy with steel cards unless I know I can consistently sack it.
Yeah, I think the only real sacrifice outlets we've seen are in black-green.
Yes.
Which is awkward for a red card, so... yeah.
And it's got a lot of restrictions, too, which I'm not very happy with.
Agreed, yeah. I like the art on this card, but... You know, it's a 1/5 probably.
A 1/5? Oh yeah. I thought you meant 1 or 5. I was like, when is it a 5? You're crazy. Okay, I put it at a 1. Faithless Looting, guys. My sad deck is sad now that this is banned. Draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. So you want to pitch extra lands. It's pretty reasonable. It's got flashback. It's worse than what we normally see, right? It's normally pitch a land, draw 2.
Yeah, not necessarily. Usually those cost a little more than just 1.
I just meant on the scale of cardboard.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But this has flashback. Red, white in particular wants stuff in the graveyard. So that's helpful.
That's true. This is technically card disadvantage.
Yeah, it is. You need to have some sort of synergy this card.
Yep. Great. So I'll put it at a 1 and just make a note in the article that it is slightly better if you want things in your graveyard. Great shot.
Yep.
1 damage to any target, which is important. So it could go face, could go to a creature. With Storm, 2 mana. This is probably the only Storm card that's going to see some play in limited, I think, because it's cheap enough. Now, I do want to say that it's sorcery speed, so it's not very flexible. But if you have a lot of spells, especially ones that are drawing you more cards, like Faithless Looting, maybe this is going to be playable in your deck. At worst, it's 2 mana, deal 1 damage to any target. Not great. Actually, let me rephrase that. I think at worst, it's 2 mana, deal 2 damage. Because you're going to be able to line this up with another spell, right?
Yeah, you just won't be able to do that on turn 2.
No, exactly. So it depends on how many X ones there are, but I think it'll be easy enough to basically cast a very expensive shock at its worst.
Yeah, and you'll get some extra, copy triggers out of your Magecraft.
Yeah, Magecraft would be a reason that this would have some upside. Your opponent having a lot of X1s, because it's not an expensive shock if it's killing 2 creatures.
Oh, absolutely.
So I guess in that way, it's an expensive. So it's a Chandra's Pyrohelix at that point, right?
Yep.
Great. 2?
Yeah, I think it's 2.
Great.
You'll know when you have the right deck for this card.
Your turn.
Increasing Vengeance. Red instant. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. And if this spell was cast from a graveyard, copy it twice. And you can choose new targets for the copies and it has flashback for 3 red. Weird card. There is this whole copy theme in blue-red in this set, so this kind of fits nicely in with that. But you got to have a lot of quality targets to copy to be happy with this card.
Yeah, I'm not usually running the copy effects in my limited decks, but again, like you said, it does have a slight theme, and the fact that you can potentially do it twice if you have, more spells is pretty nice. So it is card advantage in that way. So your first time you cast it's not an advantage; it's a 1-for-1. But then after that, you're getting a free card essentially. So premium targets, I'm happy to run this in a themed deck. What do you think?
Yeah. I think in the average deck, you're probably not playing this card, but with enough good removal for the most part, it's probably the best thing to do with this.
Yeah, I agree with
pretty
that.
good. But I think it probably still averages out to around a 2.
All right, so let's say I think we say 1-3. So that way, if you have the Prismati deck, then it's probably closer to a 3. If you don't, unplayable.
Yep.
Great. This is a pump spell we've seen semi-recently. 1 mountain, and it is +3/+2 at instant speed. That is a fair amount of damage. I do want to say that.
Yeah. And unlike some red combat tricks, it's not restricted to attacking creatures.
Yes. Yeah, like barge in and things like that.
Yeah, that was just me making fun of Run.
I like Run Amok, thank you very much.
I
think it's a fine combat trick for an aggressive deck. If any of your decks go long, I don't know if you're going to get enough value out of this card. 2 defense is kind of nice, so you could potentially, combat save your creature, but usually those are like 3/3s, +3/3 or higher.
Yeah, it's a fine combat trick, but nothing exciting. Playable like a 2.
Great.
Oh, we're going through all of the best removal spells ever printed, pretty much.
Lightning
Bolt.
Easy one.
The original.
4.
1 red, deal 3 to anything.
At instant speed.
Yep.
Great. 4?
Yeah. Easy. Move on.
Mizzix's Mastery. 4 mana, exile target card that is an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy it. You may cast copies without paying their mana cost, and then exile this with Overload. So the Overload means you can cast and target all of the spells in your graveyard, which is pretty good. But you have to overload it.
Yeah. 4 mana to copy something out of my graveyard doesn't sound particularly great, but neither really does 8 mana for everything, although I guess if I've got enough stuff, it eventually becomes good.
Yeah, this feels like it's the same idea as the Prismati deck, right? Like, the deck that wants this, it's probably, it's worth playing. 8 mana is a lot, but in limited, that's okay to have an 8 drop. And if you're casting, 2 lightning bolts and a draw spell off of this, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, there are definitely decks that can support this. Again, this is probably another split rating, I would guess.
1, 3, 5?
Yeah.
Great. Shock. We see that a lot.
Shock.
Shock is one of the removal spells that actually fluctuate a bit for me as far as rating goes, because it's going to depend highly what kinds of targets it kills. So in some sets where they have the 2/2 guild leader cycle, this shock is just way better.
Yeah, you do want to have, the better the X2 targets are, the better this card is.
Mm-hmm.
I still can't fathom a deck where I'm cutting it. I just might not take it early.
Yeah, I definitely don't take them very early. I've definitely cut a few shocks, but that's usually just because I had 2 or 3.
Sure.
And I didn't deem it to be the better of the removal spells in my deck, but, it's not a bad one by any means. I think it's a 3?
Yeah, I like that.
It could be slightly better in the set, but I won't know until I really take a look at it. Stone Rain. I know this is a card you love is in the set.
They just stopped printing cards like this because they're like the epitome of not. 2 and a red, destroy a land.
Says the Counterspell player.
Counterspells are awesome. I don't know what you're talking about. That's the same reason they stopped printing the card Counterspell too. People think it's unfun.
But you think one is fun, and then you hate the other one. Either way, your opponent can't cast a spell. Or, I guess, so it's okay with you if they can cast it, it just doesn't resolve, then it's still fun?
Exactly. I let them do their thing, and then I just stop it. This doesn't even let them try.
You're going straight to hell.
For many, many reasons.
We'll be neighbors, it'll be fine. I think it's not a good limited effect. Like, I don't really care. I'm typically not running land destruction things in my deck. If I, for whatever reason, end up with like a bunch of these, I still don't know that like I want to be on that train. Because what if it happens a little slow, they resolve something, and then it's too late, right?
Yeah. This would have been a pretty good card in Kaldheim with all the spell lands.
I was literally going to say, it's only good if I could cheat and put the Kaldheim Gruul cards in my deck. If I can do that, then I would play it, sure. But yeah, no, probably not running it. Great.
You'll play it. You'll probably play this card. It's fine. Like, it will occasionally just steal you a win by color hosing somebody.
That's true.
But it's like there's another one of those like 23rd levels.
Yeah. This is the card I was actually talking about when we were talking about Faithless Looting, where it's discard a card at instant speed, but it costs 1 more. But it works out to be cardboard even, right? It's this card plus the card in your hand, discard for 2 fresh cards. Versus the Faithless Looting, which is card negative, which is great when you have cards like Vengevine and stuff in your deck. Or that's, what my Faithless Looting cards were in. But you don't really want to have a deficit of cardboard in your hand for limited. So I actually like this better. I'm far more likely to run this than a Faithless Looting.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, you pretty much said it all. This card is card neutral instead of card disadvantage. Great. And you can still get the card in your graveyard that you want.
Better in Magecraft, still probably cutting it more often than not. Yep. I would say this probably makes it maybe half my red decks.
Yeah, a little bit more than usual because you've got the red-blue spells deck, but also red-white cares about stuff in your yard.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, let's bump it up, 2/5.
Yeah.
Great. I'm convinced.
All right, Urza's Rage. It used to be a control deck win condition. 2 and a red, deal 3 to anything with kicker 8 and a red. So 12 mana total, which would deal 10 damage to anything. Spell can't be countered. And if you kick it to deal 10 damage, you can't prevent the damage either. And it's mostly, you look at this as a 3 mana deal 3 that can't be countered.
Yep, I agree with that. Which is playable if you happen to get to the kicker phase, then it's probably going to win you the game. But for the most part, I don't think that that's going to be super relevant.
No.
What are we thinking score-wise? I've seen a fair amount of 3 mana, 3 damage spells, but I think they're always fine.
Yeah, I think I have it because it's an instant. I think I have it around a 3.
Great. I'm on board at a 3. Real quick, I just wanted to say, Team Jabro, thank you so much for the raid. I apologize. We're doing our set review and recording for YouTube, so I was just trying not to stop mid-card. But thank you guys so much for the raid. I really do appreciate it. For my viewers, make sure you guys click that link. Go show some love to Team Jabro. Some really great Magic and Arena content. So jump in and show our raiders some love. I would really appreciate it. And yeah, I made a little note. We'll cut that out of the video. Moving right along, guys. I think that's the last of our red. So we are now at green. We have Abundant Harvest. Choose a land or non-land. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen kind. Put that card into your hand and the rest into the bottom of your library in a random order.
Yeah, that's basically my reaction.
It just gives you, you know, it gives you your third land if it's in your opener and you need one. It gives you a creature late game, but this could also just be a creature. So, I mean, it gives you a little bit more flexibility, but it's basically just a cycle.
Yeah. It's only 1 mana, which is nice, but again, these cards are always playable, but you kind of prefer not to.
Yep, they typically get cut. So yeah, I'll put it at a 2 because it's
Yep.
a better cycle, right? Because you're getting the thing that you want, but that's not necessarily good enough. Adventurous Impulse. I think this is kind of a recent reprint as well. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put that into your hand, and the rest in the bottom in any order.
Yeah.
Playable, I think it's roughly the same. I ended up cutting it from most decks.
Yeah, I almost always cut this card as well, but there's nothing wrong with playing it. You could just usually, with the amount of playables they print nowadays, you can usually find something better.
Yeah, I think that this is a card from days past where, 30% of the cards printed were unplayable even in limited. So you'd, have a lower overall quality of deck, so this would dig through some of that top chaff and get you some better things, but I feel like everything is just good now, so you could just play them.
Agreed.
There's very few ones in a format anymore.
Yeah, it's usually just like the crazy rares that are for constructed.
Yeah, and one common in each set or something.
Yeah.
Channel. Until end of turn, any time you could activate a mana ability, you may pay 1 life. If you do, add a colorless mana. So you could activate this multiple times. It says anytime you could activate.
Yeah, it's the original Magic combo, Channel Fireball. Just pay 19 life and burn them out with the help of Black Lotus and a land. Card is great if you've got big colorless things or X spells to use, but generally that is not the case in Limited.
Yeah, you just want like a fireball with this and a mana dork.
Yeah.
Great. Not really something I want to play.
Nope.
Great. 1. Excellent. Moving on. Cultivate. This is something we've seen recently as well. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put one of them onto the battlefield tapped and the other one into your hand. So a slight ramp, as well as ensuring that you hit your later land drops as well. Good in the right deck, and there is actually a ramp synergy school in Quandrix, so I could see this being very valuable to them specifically.
Yeah, Cultivate's always a good card in any set that it's printed. Ramps you, it fixes your colors. It helps you hit your next land drop. It's one of the better ramp spells they've printed.
What do you think, score-wise?
I think it's around a 3.
Okay, yeah, great. I was thinking between a 3 or a 2/5, but I think there's enough synergies in the format to where it'll be better. Harmonize. 4 mana, draw 3 cards in green.
Yep, this was one of the lasting side effects of Planar Chaos, where they color shifted effects. That has the alternate effect of leaving these cards legal in eternal formats forever in colors they don't belong in. But it's a good card. 4 mana, draw 3. Green doesn't get them.
Wholeheartedly agree. I'm going to play this in literally any green deck.
Yeah. Like a 3/5.
Yeah, I think so. It seems pretty cheap. And green is usually ramping and stuff. You have lots of extra land in that color. Feels strong. Doing something that your color doesn't usually do. So if it's an entirely color shifted set, then it's it feels weaker because they're all doing the different thing. But in this set where you're doing your normal thing, but you also have this added thing, you just fill out all the curves of your deck, right? You're ramping and drawing cards, holy smokes. Then your ramp spells no longer have a downside because they're not costing you cardboard anymore.
Yeah, this is for our school purposes of our schools. This is probably better in green black because in Witherbloom because Quandrix is going to already have access to card draw.
That's true.
But I mean, you're still going to play it in Quandrix.
Definitely, yeah. I agree with that. Your blue, like you were saying, you draw spells anyway, so it's not like this huge extra bonus that you don't normally have access to. But in the Witherbloom, it definitely will be.
Yeah.
Great. 3 to 3/5. Rosen's Grip. Split second means it's like the only split second card in the set that we were talking about in the previous video. Destroy target artifact or enchantment and your opponent can't really respond to it. Sideboard card?
Yep. Simple. We're not in a artifact or enchantment heavy set, so
A little bit more expensive than Naturalize, but instant speed, so, or split second speed.
Split second.
Natural Order. 4 mana as an additional cost to cast. Sacrifice a green creature, search your library for a green creature card, and put it into the battlefield, then shuffle.
So this is your the most important card to your Vintage Cube mono green decks. The typical way those decks win is you natural order away a mana dork and get Crater of Behemoth. We'd have to see what you can get in this set to know how good this is and what the cheap green creatures are that you want to play.
Yeah, you need to have a polarizing deck for this card to be good. Because if you're getting rid of a 3 mana vanilla creature and you're getting a 4 mana, 5 mana vanilla creature, it's not great. It's borderline playable at that point. But if you have a bunch of mana dorks and a bunch of fatties at the top end, and that even if you drew one fatty, you're not bricking on the rest of this card, or by drawing it later, then this card becomes pretty valuable. So it's very polarizing in that you have to have a ton of large and small and not a small amount of either.
Yeah, now what's nice is that both, every school in this set produces tokens. So, you got your pest tokens that are green in Witherbloom, and you've got your fractal tokens that are green, Quandrix, as something you can sacrifice. And you've got that Elder Dragon cycle that are multicolored that'll be green that you can get. Now, granted, you're going to need, that's a mythic you have to get. But there are targets in this set that are worthwhile. You just have to get them.
Yeah, so let's say, we won't have a problem finding small things to sack. How many large things do we want to have to dig for to make this card worth playing? And even if it's just a 6 mana Lindworm type creature, it's still a big bonus for sacking a pest, right? I'm pretty happy. It doesn't need to be a bomb, it just needs to be big.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through the green cards right now, and I'm seeing a couple things I'm happy to get. There's an 8 mana 7/7 worm.
But how many do you have to have in your deck is my question. I'm sure they're in the format.
I think 3? As long as there's 2, I'm happy with this.
Okay.
Assuming I have no problem making the cheap stuff.
Yes.
Then I'm happy with 2 targets.
And how happy are we? Everybody said absurd, busted, broken, oh my god, but I don't feel like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a busted card in Constructed when you can build around it.
Yes. I think that's part of the miscommunication. I see people's reactions and I'm like, you're crazy, but they're talking about Constructed, so.
Yeah, you want to go get Vorinclex or something, sure, but that's not in this set.
And the likelihood of you having this mythic plus some other busted mythic is just not all that common.
Yeah. I think if you have 2 good targets for this, then I'm happy with this card at a 3/5.
Okay.
But those targets need to be the 8-drop worm or some of these rares are green rares or mythics.
So how do we feel about a split 2/4 rating?
Yeah.
Great. Primal Command. Choose 2. It's 5 mana green spell. Target player gains 7 life. Put target non-creature permanent on top of its owner's library. So it's not just a bounce. It actually bricks their next draw, which is nice. Target player shuffles their graveyard into their library. Could be useful. Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. A lot of options. Not all of them are super powerful on their own, but picking 2 is nice. shuffling your graveyard into your library late game could be really nice by like changing the ratio of lands to spells in your deck, because you know, if you're making it half as likely that you're going to draw a land, I suppose, is what I'm saying, and you're putting like all your best removal cards back into your deck, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think this is a testament to, you know, how valuable flexibility is.
Yes.
You know, target player gains 7 life really isn't that great. But searching your library for your best creature and getting into your hand, you've already got at least 5 mana, so you're probably at least pretty close to casting your best card, if not already there. You can combine the second and third options to remove any non-creature permanent from play that they have, because you can put it on top and then make them shuffle their deck.
Yep, that's true.
You can shuffle your own library if you've got some of your best cards in there. It's just a really flexible.
Yeah, I like this card a fair amount. Like I said, none of it seems particularly powerful, but doing 2 of it and whatever, like, you know, prevents you from decking, increases your card quality, prevents them from having lethal. If they're like, the gain 7 life maybe is really good if you're going against a Boros deck and you're about to turn the corner, or I should say whatever the aggressive deck is. Maybe it's Spell Quill in this or something. Quill spell.
Silver Quill. Yeah.
Silver Quill.
Yeah. I like this actually, like up at a 4.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of on the fence between like a 3/4 and a 3/5 and a 4. Regrowth. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. These cards are always fine, but
yeah,
I don't usually run them.
This is a card in the vein of Demonic Tutor, right? Where the better your deck is, the better this card is.
Yes.
Except worse, because you have to have already played your card.
Yes, definitely.
You know, it's playable if you've got, every deck's gonna have a couple things you probably want to get back. So I'm probably not cutting this card often, but I'm not taking it super high either, unless I've got a lot of bombs.
Okay, yeah, I actually usually do cut it. I have to have a couple of things, multiple targets of things I want to get back. Now, it does say target card. It doesn't say permanent, so it does include premium removal. So if I'm in the Withered Bloom and I've got like good removal spells, then that definitely increases it, because you could get your biggest creature, you could get your removal, you could get whatever. And then I like that flexibility, but if I'm in like a big green stompy deck of some sort, then I'm usually not happy just for the 1/1 with whatever my creature is that I've played so far.
You've got to dream. You've got to think about the multiple Dark Ritual into regrowth, get back Dark Ritual, play Channel, make a whole bunch of mana, and kill them with Storm. No?
Good luck. Silly constructed players. Snakeskin Veil. This card has overperformed for me in this last set. Like, I always like these. I'm higher on them than most people, and this one feels even better to me in the last set.
Yeah, Snakeskin Veil has been very good in Kaldheim. I imagine it will be in Strixhaven.
Yep. Leaving a lasting counter and negating, like, whatever their removal spell is so good. And I've also just used it as a combat trick sometimes. I've actually lethaled people with just the 1 counter.
Oh, definitely.
It's insanely flexible. It does so much, and you always find a good spot for it, no matter where you're at. In a couple of videos ago, we posted one with Dan Musser, where we had the Battle Behemoth, and they targeted it to kill it with the Feed the Serpent, and we top decked this off the draw mechanic from the Battle Behemoth, and then just protected it. It was so nuts.
That's just me.
It was very mean, and it was amazing. Felt like $1 million afterwards. So, I mean, that said, it's still a combat trick. I'm gonna probably put it at like a 3.
Yeah, agreed.
Great. Oh, Weather the Storm. I didn't have this one written down. Strange.
1 in the green.
Go ahead.
3 life. Form. Simple card. This card saw some play and constructed as a sideboard card against like Burn. But not a great card. Low effect. You're not going to be able to storm for a whole bunch, despite what I said about regrowth.
Yeah. And again, life gain is kind of minimal in most decks. Now, maybe this is better in Withered Bloom because they have like every time you gain life, you drain. So if you have like some mechanics like that, if you get 2 to 3 triggers on this, you're happy. That's possible, but the average deck is going to find 0 value in this card.
Yeah, I think this is pretty much a sideboard card against hyper aggro, or maybe that super dedicated life.
All right, moving right along, guys. D-Spark, exile target permanent, important to note, with mana cost 4 or greater.
Yeah, I think we saw this I think it was War of the Spark.
Uh-huh.
It's a good card there. It's occasionally gets frustrating that you can't hit what you want, but you're always trading up for mana with this card.
Yeah, always trading up, but I will say I have been very, very frustrated by this card many times in that a lot of times the thing that's killing you in limited is under 4 mana.
Yeah.
I've died to just a 1/1 dork because we're on top deck mode and they just, I hit a land, they hit a land, I hit a creature, they hit a removal spell, and they're just dork me to death. And I just want to kill them with my D-Spark and I can't. But that said, it's still going to hit some really premium things. So
yeah, I think I've got this at a 3/5.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to depend on how fast the format is. Like in the last set with Kaldheim, when you had so many foretell cards, the actual cost of most cards were higher than what they cast it with, because this could hit a Pack Wolf.
Yep.
Even though they cast it earlier, I would say in a format like that, that's either slower or has ways to trick things out, it would be higher value, but we don't know how high that is. So 3, 5, or 4, depending on the format.
Yep, agreed.
Great. Electrolyze.
1 blue and a red, deal 2 damage, divided between 1 or 2 targets, draw a card at instant speed. This is a modern staple for Jeskai control for a while. It's a very good card. It replaces itself. Can usually will kill something and potentially 2 things. And you can always, if you're killing an X1, you can always get that extra point to your.
It's also nice that so instant speed, it's split, so you could do it in combat, right? So you do 1 point of damage to the thing that you blocked or they blocked, and then also kill their X1 token or shoot their face, so it's not wasted. And then the drawing an additional card spell is going to be really nice with Prismati, who wants to copy and draw a bunch. It'll trigger Mentor really well. Anytime you draw extra cards to trigger, not Mentor, sorry, Spellcraft, Magecraft. Drawing more helps you trigger your Magecraft more, so I like it. I'm very happy to run this card.
Yeah, I think it's a solid 3.
I think I'm a little higher on it than that. Putting it at 3/5. Growth Spiral. It's a fine card. It ramps you, replaces itself. Right? That's this card, right? Yeah, okay, great. It's important to note that it draws a card first, so even if you don't have that land in your hand, you could potentially still get it.
Yeah, not guaranteed ramp because you have to have a land in your hand or hit it on that 1 draw. But even if you miss, you've still cycled.
Yep. What do you think score-wise?
It's I think it's a 2/5. It could be up to a 3 in the right deck, and Quandrix does want to be ramping. So maybe it's a 3 then, because it's obviously only going in Quandrix decks.
Yeah, it does, I think, get a little bit of a higher value here because of it matches so well with the Quandrix Guild. School. It's going to take a while to get used to that. Now, I know in the previous set, a lot of people were seeing very good results with their growth spirals. I was cutting it a lot because it's an easy cut scapegoat when you can't make decisions, but I do think the card is slightly better than what I was giving it credit for. So I wasn't running them very often, but I think that there were a lot of good players that I know that used it a lot and were always very happy with it. So I'm going to put it at a 2/5, and I think if you've got the right deck for Quandrix, that you're going to be even happier to play it. Lightning Helix. Deal 3 damage, gain 3 life for 2 mana. Yay?
Yep. Great card. Just combines Lightning Bolt and Healing Salve, 2 of the original boon cycle from Alpha, into 1 card. Yeah.
4?
Always playing this. Yep.
Great. Putrefy, 3 mana, destroy target artifact or creature. It can't be regenerated.
Kind of saying the same thing as the last card. Always playing this card. Not as good as Lightning Helix, but you know, effectively unconditional removal at 3 mana.
You don't think it's as good as Lightning Helix Unlimited?
Just less efficient. I guess it probably is equally as good overall. It's equally as powerful.
Yeah, I think it's. I think they're just they have very different. Like if you're usually in the more aggressive Boros, you need the cheap removal to get rid of their initial blockers so you can get under them and lethal them quickly. If you have the longer game deck, this is just as good for you for what you're trying to do. I actually personally think this is probably stronger in the average deck. I just like that it kills larger things. And
sure, it does trade up on mana, which is nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I'd probably after talking that through, I'd probably put it the same spot as a 4.
Yeah, I would also put them both at a 4, and then I think I lean the opposite direction of you. Has a slightly higher edge than the Helix to me. All right, guys, that's it. We are done. That is all of our fancy special cards that I again already forgot the name of.
Good old Mystical Archive.
Mystical Archives, thank you. These are, like I said in the beginning of the video, just cards that are going to be in every single pack that you open for draft, sealed, or even just the packs on Arena. You'll be replacing your land slot, so you'll see them a ton, and you will have to actually use your wild cards to craft the complete set of them if you want, because they're not a plain altar. So keep that in mind. This video was a tad bit longer than I was expecting, but there are more of these cards than there are of any particular color, so those videos will be much shorter. Thank you guys so much for watching. Yanks, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video for our white review. Bye, guys. I'd like to give a special thank you to those of you who have signed up for our Patreon. I couldn't make this content without you. Also to Cool Stuff Inc. and KMC Sleeves for supporting the channel as well. Definitely check them out and use our discount codes to support the channel.